Welcome to the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong, and today we have another great guest. I have had the privilege of seeing this person live on stage, speaking to thousands of entrepreneurs and business CEOs, talking about business exits, business scaling, and growth. And it's very interesting because she comes from a very extensive background of something that's very, very technical in molecular biology and, of course, chemical ecology. Is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah, yeah.
She's been able to utilize that skill set and also leverage that skill set of detecting patterns and managing complexity, really using data-driven decision making under very high stress environments to become a very, very successful entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, she has founded a digital content company where she dealt with process optimization, workflow management, and of course, digital growth. And now she's also part of a senior management partner of a AI agency group, helping other businesses use AI to really increase their success in their businesses. So fast forward to today, she's been able to use her scientific discipline, her mindset, her entrepreneurial insight, also AI-driven strategies to help empower businesses with stable cash flow and, of course, untapped potential to have strategic growth, optimizing their operations, and also setting up for successful exits. So please welcome AI-Preneur, investor, and strategist, Ms. YERITZA Bohorquez.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. Always enjoy speaking with people who have lots of success, not only in one discipline, but in multiple areas, and willing to share that journey with us. So without further ado, how did you go from something very, very technical that usually does not require you to go up on stage speaking with people and really exposing yourself to like social media and stuff to somebody who's now going out there speaking on stages, sharing AI strategies and helping businesses grow?
It's so interesting because when I started as a scientist, you're right. I also didn't see the connect and I didn't see how I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I was very much married to the idea of being a researcher and a scientist forever. But I hadn't realized that throughout my life, I had had some sense of entrepreneurship from the beginning. So when I arrived in Canada, I had to take on a very parental role in my family and I had to figure out how to make money. So I had to sell things, I had to babysit, I had to figure it out, right? And throughout my university career, I had to sell bread, I sold shampoo, I was selling things and doing things on the side to make cash. And so, I then when I went to graduate school, I had to go and convince supervisors to be my research supervisors. And then I had to go and present my research, defend my thesis. Like all of these things, you don't realize how analogous they are to the entrepreneurial world. And so, when I decided to make that shift, it was almost by accident. I think I had already worked myself to an amazing position. It would probably be my dream position if I had, been in a different stage in my life. But because my husband and I had already planted the seed of creating our digital content company and it was doing so well, it almost felt like going to work as a scientist was taking away from the thing that was generating the most for us. And it's always this principle of doubling down on what works. And, you know, making that decision to step away from what you thought was going to be your lifelong career and what you went to school for and invested so much of your life for, it was really difficult to step away from that. But also, I'm a very logical person and it just made sense. It doesn't make sense to go down this path when what I am doing here with our marketing and our entrepreneurship is working and delivering 10 times fold. And so in doing that, I initially came to put my time, like my full time into this with the operations side of things and how are we gonna, like optimize our systems because again, I'm very technical and that's what I did in the scientific world. But then we quickly realized that all of these skill sets that I also developed in science were definitely, I mean, not just the data analysis and the technical side of things, but also, pitching yourself to an investor and defending your product and pitching it to somebody. Like all of these things very much are analogous. And when people in my old world, the scientific world, my network there asks me how it's going and how I did it, I always tell them, you guys don't realize that it's very similar. And a lot of you have what it takes, you to be an entrepreneur, you have to just sit there and do the thing and focus and work tirelessly. But you could say that same thing about any researcher in any discipline in science, right? So I think the only thing that I would say was hardest is what you mentioned, the charisma and the social skills to go out and network. But over time, you do develop that. I think when you surround yourself with people that are like-minded, it's very easy and also inspirational.
It's
Yeah.
pretty funny that a lot of people I speak with who are very, very successful now, who's transitioned from one position to another, usually says, "Yeah, I never thought about doing this ever in my life. Like, I am a person who's researching. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm never going to be an entrepreneur." But when you start looking back, there's a lot of, like, let's say, keys or a lot of incidences where, wait a minute, I've already been doing all that kind of stuff. And that is the type of person I am. Why am I so fixated on this is what I am at the time kind of thing, right? And I would assume that during that period of time, when you're researching and you're presenting certain things to investors or to get grants and whatnot, I'm going to assume that you were probably more successful than a lot of other than your colleagues because your ability to sell and your ability to connect and build relationships. Is that true?
I mean, I think so. I'm sorry, I hate tooting my own horn, but it's true. I think it's a number of things. I think because I had to develop that as a necessity growing up, my life wasn't just schools and academic. It was very much real life, learning out in the world as well as academically. I think that helped me a lot to develop good relationships. And why I say that is because mentorship to me has been everything. It has been the key to where I am today. In the scientific world, I had world-class authorities being my research supervisors. That opened so many doors for me, allowed for me to be published in amazing journals. But then when I made the transition to entrepreneurship, I wanted to replicate that same idea. So I'm really good at building relationships and leveraging those. And it got me to this point in my science career. How do I do the same thing as an entrepreneur? And I sought out mentorship from world-class mentors. And that's how I ended up, where I am today. I worked with Katie Kay, who then brought me to JT Fox. We fostered our relationship, ended up becoming business partners, investing together. All of these things have been the reason why I found success as an entrepreneur as well.
Again, it's so interesting that something that most people don't think is needed in the business world is so important, but it's so common in the technical educational world. Like the whole mentorship
Mm-hmm.
and coaching is obvious when it comes to, oh, I need to find a teacher or a mentor to guide me along in science. But when it
Yeah,
comes to business, it's not very common. Whereas
yeah.
in education, in the educational system, the whole building relationships and being able to connect, people don't focus on that. Yet when you have that, it makes you so much better in this world as well. And it just goes to show it's like sometimes one thing that's very important here, when applied here, makes it a whole big difference in what you want to what you want to achieve. And compared to your coworkers or your colleagues, people are like, "What the heck just happened?" Right? So it's pretty interesting that you went through that process. But something else I would like to know is obviously in the scientific world, you must have loved what you were doing. So was it difficult for you to kind of let that all go?
I did. I think I'm a very curious person, and I have always been fascinated by explaining the natural world. And when I was growing up, science and math were my refuge. They were the thing that made sense. And coming as a refugee from a country that doesn't speak English to an English speaking country, the only thing that really made sense in school was math and science. Right. And so it just became my passion from the very beginning. And, you know, researching was somewhere where I learned so much about myself. Uh, I discovered so many strengths, so many weaknesses about me, but I've learned to understand that everything has a chapter in your life and it's okay to let go of things. And that's not to say that I'm never gonna return to science. I'm always gonna be a scientist. It's very much in here. It's just the capacity in which I'm gonna be involved in it won't necessarily be on the bench doing lab work. Funding, it would be like there's so many different ways to get back into it that I look forward to it.
Yeah.
It's not a goodbye, it's just a see you later.
Could you give us an example of the type of technical stuff that you actually researched and discovered? Like, what's the most fascinating thing that you could share that you were
Oh,
working on?
well, my graduate school project, so my master's research was all about, I was working for Agriculture Canada. And we have this pest called wireworms. And they are responsible for millions and millions and millions of dollars of agricultural losses. And nobody has been able to figure out a way to control them. And there was a study that found when you do rotational crop, so if you plant buckwheat prior to the season of, strawberries, that it decreases that wireworm population in that specific field. So my whole research was trying to understand the chemicals that were involved in this buckwheat rotation crop um, mitigation. And, I did. I figured out there are a number of phenols and flavonoids that were involved in this. And then the idea from the next person taking over after I was finished was to then isolate and then maybe come up with a concentrate that could be used in wide scale by farmers, right? But that's the nature of research. You just build upon, each person builds upon the next person, and
Very,
that's how it
very
is.
cool. How often does your scientific background and topics and stuff like that come up in like a networking environment or relationship building kind of thing?
You'd be surprised the number of scientists and doctors that transition into entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
Like, I know people in biomedical engineering. I know like doctors that are part of this network that we're in right now that, they just again also made the transition and found that it's something that they were good at from all along and they didn't know it.
Hmm. So why was it digital content that you kind of stabilized into?
So while we were we were in school, my husband and I, he went to school for marketing and Bachelor of Commerce. I went into the scientific route. And it was actually funny because we started really our business journey in more in the real estate side. So we I was just obsessed with like buying property and I was still in school. I had no idea what I was doing, but I something was telling me you need to get in now. And my husband was like, I don't know how you think we're going to do this because we're still in school. And so I took my student loan, and in Ontario there's something called OSAP, and there is a portion of that loan that is given for you to live, like for living expenses. And if you spend that, you don't have food or rent. And I was like, we're gonna use that as our down payment for a house. And he thought I was insane because like how? But that took a lot of discipline, a lot of cutting back, like a lot of sacrifice, a lot of like we skipped meals. We wouldn't go out with our friends. It was just but we did it for a year. We bought our house, and that same year, my husband graduated and he started his job for a marketing firm. And it was our first flip property. We three times its value in 3 years, and then it snowballed. And so in doing that, we started realizing, okay, we just have to get creative. And at the same time, my husband had been working in marketing, and these companies kept going bankrupt. So the first one laid him off. He found another one and worked on it for a couple of years, and then he got laid off again. And we were like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, you keep getting laid off. And he's like, I am done working for other people. We're gonna start our own thing. Keep in mind, we had just had our son. So I was like, okay.
It's almost like the two of you are trying to one up each other. One person goes, you know what? We're gonna use all our funds for food and living and buy a property, and then the other one's, well, I'm gonna one up you. We're gonna start our own company in an
Yeah,
industry that already was bankrupt twice, and you go, you know what? I'm gonna
yeah,
do that industry that bankrupt twice already, that failed me twice.
yeah. But you know why? Because he had a lot of objections while he was working, that and ideas that if ownership had listened to him, they wouldn't be in the position that they found themselves in. And he's also so good at building relationships and connecting in a very deep level with people. And so the clients from these firms actually wanted to work with him. So he started with a good, sizable client base. And because he'd worked in the viral space for so long, he had become very good friends with a few influencers. So that was enough for him to just be like, look, let's put all of this together and let's create this agency and go from there and do whatever it takes. And I think what you say is true. Like, I think we complement each other. I think prior to him, I was a little bit more hesitant to take risks. And prior to me, he was somebody that had a lot of drive, but not a lot of focus. And when we met, it was like he knew that I'm like an overachiever. He knew that I'm like, I want to do my absolute best and I will not rest until I do. He is very bold. And I think when we got together, it's like we gave each other permission to just get creative and do both things together. And, you know, ended up being to where we are now.
Mm. Well, that is a miracle on its own because there's lots of people that says you can't partner up and work with your spouse. And so, what's your secret? Aside from the fact that you just mentioned that you both of you complement each other very well, but when things don't go according to plan, it's that those different mindsets that usually clash. So, how do you
Mhm.
deal with like hey, this isn't going the way we want it? You think this way, I think this way. How do you manage those kind of conversations?
I think we understand each other's strengths really well. I think he knows that I'm somebody that likes to map things, and because of my background, I'm just really good at processes and operations. And so he trusts that. And he, if he has an idea, an objection, or whatever, we talk about it and we come to a consensus, but ultimately he understands that this is my bread and butter.
Mhm.
On the flip side, I trust him with my life about strategy and um, high level decisions. So even though I'm very much involved in the high level decision making, I just know that he will make it work. He never fails, right? And so, I mean, even when he fails, he doesn't fail. So I trust that. And so I may have a different way of looking at it, but when we talk about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna trust you on this one. And it's worked out so far.
Mhm.
That's been our strategy. And up until this point, it hasn't failed.
So you
Yeah.
have the digital company, and you're also building a real estate portfolio. So with regards to the real estate side, was
But
that
not anymore. I mean, we did have a few flip properties, but we stopped investing in real estate like 2 years ago.
yeah, but at the
Yeah.
same like you were still doing real estate investing, you were still
Yeah.
building your
Oh, back
company
then.
back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fast forward to now, you're into AI, you're into helping people scale within
Mergers.
businesses and merge and whatnot. So
Yeah.
all those different stages of your entrepreneurship, was there something that you go, you know what, that's a big turning point there, and then you kind of went, okay, that then led to this thing, and that's another big turning point here that led to this thing. Sure, you may have kind of stopped certain things here and there, but each
Yeah.
one was like a stepping stone towards the next big thing. How do you
Hmm.
manage those big turning points in your life?
I mean, I think it's being able to recognize them is one major one. People don't really realize they're in it until it's past. I think for us to have gotten into, for example, the real estate, when we got into real estate, and having really milked that to its potential the way that we did, because our first property, it tripled in less like at the 3 year mark. We never intended for it to happen. That was by accident, but then we learned from that one, and the second one we replicated it and did it again, right up until the market was like, okay, no, this doesn't make sense anymore, and we stopped doing that. So you adjust your strategy depending on what's going on around you. um and that's basically how we're here today, because okay, we realize real estate is dead, like JT says, dead. uh, but I mean, there are still people making great deals out there, but for us, we were like, okay, the trend and the money is at business acquisitions. And we were able to realize that. And again, we had great people in our circle that were advising us as well. And being coachable and malleable and listening to that advice is also so important. And we were like, okay, let's pivot our resources from this one thing into this one thing. And also for our digital content, it kind of is part of it all. It's also integrated with it, because a big part of a company scaling and helping companies scale is having great advertising, great marketing, great lead acquisition, great client acquisition, right? And so it was taking our already existing strengths, and just like I did with science entrepreneurship, it's also taking it from this one area into this other area. And so that's how it kind of just became connected, because now we're helping companies scale. We want those companies to succeed and get a big exit and connect them with investors and private equity. But then to get them to that point, we're harnessing AI, right? And that is the most effective, fastest way for a company to strategize and get to their end point. We're in the new age of AI. And so getting companies already on their path and having them integrate AI into it so that they can get there even faster without uncertainty, great strategy, in get the results that they want. It's all interconnected. It's all part of it.
There's a saying where business is business, whether it's dental or hair salons or whatever it is. Business is business. You could take this
Yeah.
and copy it over here and here. It's just a different product or service. So
Yeah.
you've worked with so many different businesses, different companies, helping them scale. Is there like your top maybe three or four things that could be implemented right away for people right now that goes, okay, this is how you start the process of creating a successful business that's scalable and set up for good exits?
I mean, it always comes down to financials, proper financials, proper documented processes, and operations, to the point that you have owner independence, right? So I would say those are oh, and finding a way to have like recurring revenue. So if you're able to quickly within, I mean, even when you're a startup, I think you should be starting with those four pillars in mind, even when you are don't even know how your next client is going to come in. You should be working towards having these four things be part of the foundation of your business. You know, at the beginning, a founder is so involved in their business, and that's completely understandable, but they should be working every day to replace themselves, right? And keeping clean financials. Again, you can spend this and this and then like finance your car and finance this, but then you also need to understand if you're trying to sell your business, you need to clean up your financials and have an accountant verify everything, or have AI JT1 do it for you. But you know, it's just it's having those four pillars at whatever stage you're in your business journey. Those are the things, those are the fundamentals that investors pay for, that are going to get you those higher multiples. And a lot of people want that, but they just don't know how to get started. They don't know how to document SOPs. They don't know how to properly optimize their operations. And I think that's probably the most common one, is where we come in, we help people optimize, trim, you know, document. And then from there, everything, when you have good processes, then your employees depend less on you, and therefore you're able to step away. And, you know, it kind of just kind of snowballs from there.
Do you have an example or a case study where you go into a company and goes, wow, this has been happening for all these years and nobody's fixed it?
I mean, I was about to do an acquisition like 2 months ago, a very successful company, very profitable, like according to them, great revenue on paper. And then when we went in to do due diligence, we realized that in the 5 years or 6 years that they had been in business, not once did they have an account verified document, you know? And they were trying to sell the business like this. And so we were like, how do I know what you're telling me is true? And also, how do you know how much you're actually making? But you would be surprised how often this happens.
Hmm.
A lot of, you know, business owners, I mean, they're focused in growing the business and doing the work, but there is a lot of misguidance and lack of knowledge about business management, finance management, operational management. And that's why mentorship and coaching is so needed. But again, with AI, that becomes a lot easier as well.
Now, aside from all the technical stuff in a company, like the documents, the filing, the numbers and all that kind of stuff, assuming that all that stuff is pristine, there's also another element of the owners and the management group. Are there a group of characteristics or personalities that you go, yeah, this stuff is all nice and dandy, but man, this part doesn't work and it doesn't fit your criteria of working with them, or it's not a recipe for success because of this type of mindset.
I think in mergers, we understand that when there is an owner that is very ego driven and refuses to relinquish control, they're getting in their own way, right? Especially when you're trying to do a big merger and work with private equity. Like, you want somebody that has done an exit several times to come in and kind of help you and tailor things. And you know, it's almost like a partnership. But if you as a business owner are like, no, I don't want you to change anything about my business, I don't want you to adjust anything, I like the name the way it is, I like this person and that, and they're not willing to look at it in an objective way to truly achieve the exit, it's really difficult to get them to where they say they want to be. I think there's also, you have to look at company culture. I think that you may have pristine technical, as you said, technical processes, but then if you have a culture of uh, not working together towards that common goal, or you know, not high performing people that don't believe in the vision that you have and are just there for the sake of being there, they're probably better there isn't going to be a good cohesive environment for you to have the exit that you want to have. Right. So it's a matter of like, and I also notice a lot of business owners are so sweet and they refuse to let go of people that maybe don't serve them well in their business and have been kind of like a sore spot in their business, holding them back from growth. And when you come in and you look at it from fresh eyes as an outsider and you realize, oh, but this person in management is doing this, and this is what this decision is doing to your company. It's hard for them to say, yeah, you know what, you're right. I should have let go of this or that. Yeah.
So when it comes to that scenario, loyalty is one of those things that people want to hold on to, and sometimes loyalty is so hard to develop and have. So what's that? How do you navigate through that? Like, yes, there's a loyal aspect to it, but then again, there's the numbers aspect to it, which means there's lots of people who goes, well, if you're only looking at the numbers, but man, you're heartless, kind of thing, right? So how do you communicate that so that you also have that kind of, feel good approach to it?
I think loyalty has to be both ways, right? Like at the end of the day, it is a business, right? And you have so many people working for you that generally have the best interest of the business at heart. Those are your people, right? And they're willing to do whatever it is that they need to do and adapt to be able to have the best interest of the business at heart. And the business owner, that's their life's working there, right? But if you have somebody that is not a great fit, then the loyalty aspect, you could question it both ways, right? But it's at the end of the day, the conversation is, I understand that you want to stay loyal to this person, but this, and you break down exactly how this is affecting and the repercussions of this not changing. To the point that, and you can let them go with like a good severance package, or help them with referrals and help them find an even better fit.
Now, we mentioned about some of the things that people can look at in their businesses right away. What are some of the things that people could implement AI right away into their businesses that like streamlines everything?
I mean, strategy. So for example, for us with JT1, we run every single decision through JT1 at this point, because you have all of the different C-suite positions in it. So if you want the CEO level decision, instead of wrecking your brain trying to figure it out, you just type it in. It's so easy and so fast. But then if you want financial document analysis or legal document analysis, it's no longer, let me pick up the phone, talk to my financial professional or my legal professional, have to pay a giant retainer, wait for them to reply to me whenever they want to reply to me, and then execute. I think having the interface available to you, you can literally implement anything right away. It streamlines every decision that you need to make so fast and efficiently and results driven, like ROI. You have a measurable ROI at this point, which is not something you can say about a lot of the technology that's available out there.
That's right. Now we mentioned the fact that you're looking for specific types of people to work with, like certain personalities, certain characteristics, certain mindsets, but also needs to have good numbers, good technical background and processes. What specifically is the ideal either client or person to come in to go, okay, we need your help. This is what we're at right now. Let's start. What's the ideal person?
Like the ideal client to hire me?
Yeah.
So, I mean, somebody that is that understands that something needs to change, or even if everything is working well, that understands that they need help to get to the next level, and in that understanding, being willing to understand and listen to the advice that's being given to them, and somebody that is quick to implement. Speed of implementation is everything. So when you tell them something, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, but then it takes 6 months for them to even begin. that at that point things have changed, trends have changed, investors have changed, all of that. So yeah, in an ideal world, it would be somebody that is coachable, somebody that understands where they want to go, even if things are not optimal in their business, we'll help them get there. I think the operations and the clean financials, all those things are fixable, as long as there is willingness to have that. Um, and like the strategy aspect of things, how we can implement new revenue avenues or other branches to this to scaling. Being open to that as well, and being up for the challenge. At the end of the day, it's hard to find business owners that are, I mean, being a business owner is tiring. Like, it's hard, right? And a lot of business owners want to just, I have made $1 million. I am okay just stepping back. I don't want to work anymore. Somebody else can take care of it in the business. And they stay stagnant or they start going downhill. And finding a business owner that still has that fire, once they hit the $1 million mark and they're like, okay, I'm stuck here, but I need somebody to take me to the next level, even if I have to start again and work again, that's also kind of difficult to find.
Awesome. Well, I want to touch back on the relationship building and the kind of soft skills of this career and entrepreneurship. It seems as if everything that you've done, you kind of had a decent plan from a technical and planning aspect, right? Even though if you're jumping into something, you had a good plan after you jumped into it. When it comes to speaking on stages and jumping into networking rooms and putting yourself out there on social media and all that kind of stuff, was there something that shocked you that go, oh, this is something I never expected?
I mean, I don't know. So first of all, putting myself on stage is nerve-wracking. It does give me a lot of anxiety. But all of the worst things that can happen generally don't happen. You think, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget, I'm gonna go blank, people are not gonna like me. And in my experience, it's all in your head. You just psych yourself out. You just have to go and do it. And so when I've been on stage, all I've ever received is encouragement and a lot of support from people. And it actually has helped people when I speak. And so it's actually even more motivating now. When I started my social media, again, putting yourself on camera and putting yourself out there, all of our digital content is not about us. Like, it's not us being on screen, it's about news, celebrities, all that stuff, right? So I've never had to be on social media up until now. And doing it at the beginning I felt so unnatural. But when I started realizing that people were DMing me and being like, oh my gosh, I've learned so much. I didn't know what this number meant. I didn't know that I could do this. Then it starts becoming motivating, because then you're helping people, you're putting knowledge out there, you're contributing to the community. So, yeah.
I gotta say, to this day, sometimes listening to myself is cringe.
Yes,
And therefore
especially
sometimes
your first few videos when you don't know what you're doing. Yeah,
exactly. I
it's the
I
worst.
think during the initial stages, I would either just watch with no sound and just watch myself move around, or listen without any visual and just,
Yeah,
okay, I can only handle one thing at a time, because if I watch it all together, I'm gonna be like, oh, I can't take it.
yeah, yeah. No, I feel like that's every person when they watch themselves back. I mean, you hear actors being like, I don't watch my own movies. I hate looking at myself. So, I bet it's just everybody.
Exactly. One other question I had in the previous interview was, how early should somebody start learning about financial literacy and entrepreneurship, right?
I
And his
think as
answer
early
was
as possible.
yesterday, right? You have your mom, you have a son.
Yeah.
How soon did you introduce this type of stuff to him?
I think from the beginning, I think ever since we've interacted and played, there has always been some sort of financial literacy aspect to
Mm,
the way that we teach him. that's something I didn't have. That's something my husband didn't have. And I feel like the reality for most people is that financial literacy is not a common thing to learn in school or at home. And so we wanted to make sure our son understood delayed gratification, investing, compounding, all that, right? So he understands to the point that he's a little old man and likes checking his portfolio every so often and likes putting his birthday money and Christmas money away in investments instead of spending it on toys. And, so we've done something right.
So the kids are talking about like what they just watched on Sesame Street, and here's your son talking about, my portfolio is doing this.
Yeah. Like, how much did it grow today?
Awesome. Let's say we put you back on the world stage and you get a couple minutes to share one more message that you want everybody to remember you for. What would that message be?
Oh man, I would say looking at the world with gratitude. I think everything that you go through in life is a learning experience. And even though it may be difficult at the moment, even though it might be challenging, traumatic, or you may feel alone, you're gonna make it. You have it in you to make it, and you're gonna come out stronger. And all of the lessons that you've learned from that, you're gonna be so grateful for because they have prepared you for excelling in your next chapter. And so just having that gratitude and that outlook in life where you will survive and you will do amazing. I think everybody needs to remember that about themselves.
Awesome. Great words to live by. Now, before I let you go, I got 5 rapid fire questions for you. Give me the first thing that
Oh
comes to
no.
mind. All right.
Okay.
So you're stranded on a deserted island, one food to eat for the rest of your life, no consequence.
Sorry. Say that again. You're stranded in an island.
On the island, one food to eat for the rest of your life, there's no consequence. So you'll still be in shape and healthy.
Mangoes.
Nice choice. It's probably there too.
I know.
Hollywood calls and goes, "Hey, we love your story. We would love to do a biopic of you. Who would you cast to play you?"
Eva Mendes, just because I get all the time that I look like her.
She shows up at your door and goes, "Hey, I got casted to play you. Let's
Like,
hang out."
yeah.
What does that night look like? Because you got it all planned out.
Oh my gosh. Like, I have it planned out prior, or she just spontaneously shows up at my door?
Well, you already planned it out. So she shows up and you go,
Oh,
"Hey, let's do this, this, and this." What would that be?
one night? Oh man, I would probably cook something for her, like some Colombian dish for her, have a glass of wine and just talk.
Awesome. You're on a road trip in your car, and there's only one song that plays over and over and over again. What's that song that you don't mind?
Oh my gosh, that's the worst because I can't pick one.
Artist.
Over
Give me an
and
artist.
over. You know what? I love Bad Bunny. I love it.
Great
It pumps
choice.
me up. So I'll do Bad Bunny all day on a road
And
trip, especially.
and last question, give me a number from 1 to 4 first.
From 1 to 4, 3.
1, 2, 3. Ah, pedicure. So if you had to use pedicure as a metaphor for success, how is success like a pedicure?
How does success lead to a pedicure?
How is success like a pedicure?
How is success like a pedicure? Success is like it's waking up feeling refreshed, smooth, and pampered, just like you feel after a pedicure.
Nicely done. So that's how success is like a pedicure. Thank you very much for your time, your stories, your wisdom. Any final words from you? And also, what's the best way for people to get in touch?
So best way for people to get in touch would be Instagram, LinkedIn, email. I look at all of my DMs. I respond to them personally. So yeah, any of my socials or email. I want to say thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I loved our conversation. Final words would be, just be very mindful of who you keep around and, have space in your heart and in your presence to welcome new opportunities. And yeah, just gratitude. Like I said, gratitude.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So, for everybody out there, if you're looking for somebody who has a wealth of knowledge and wisdom with different perspectives and mindsets, Yuritsa is obviously the person to chat with. She comes in with that detailed mindset and also the entrepreneurial mindset and the marketing mindset. You can't lose. So, get in touch with Yuritsa. And also, she has a lot of great content online as well. So, make sure you connect with her. So, until next time, I'm Fong, Yuritsa. Today is the day to lock your people potential. We'll see you later.
Thank you.